Hi, this is Jeremy Ewan. A few days ago I did a design to show a snorkel being used as a protection mask against the virus. I wanted to update that a little bit and show you a little bit different on the design, but also I wanted to answer some questions that have come up in the comments. And I'll answer those afterwards. But for now, one of the questions that came up is that if you're just using one of these, you might not be getting enough breath into the mask, and that's true. So I've come up with a little bit of a different design to be able to attach two of these to the mask head, and so you get more surface area through to get air into the mask. Again, if you use the bigger one that was for a single one, you'd probably still only need a single, but I'm just going to update this. But hang around for the video because I'm going to answer some of those important questions on how to use this and why it would work potentially. So to begin with, I want to keep these two apart at the top because I don't want them clipped together like that. Because then you get a better, tighter fit at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is take some trusty masking tape, duct tape, and I'm just going to tear one in half, just like this, straight down the middle. Very easy to do. And then sticks everywhere. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll this one little one up here, like this, to make basically a bit of a cushion. Now I'm rolling it, you'll notice, with the glue on the outside. That will become apparent. That will help to glue it on the two filters. Now some other questions have come up about how often these filters need to be changed. Are the filters big enough or strong enough to stop the germs going through? And I think, you know, that they would be strong enough and big enough to stop the germs going through without any doubt, because if you think about how thick a mask is, even though it's made of a good material, it's not that thick, and these are pretty thick, so they must be able to stop quite a lot of debris coming through and viruses coming through the mask. So I do think that will actually work. Now, while I'm doing this, I'll keep talking a little bit. So there was, a few days after I put my first video out, a couple of doctors must have had the same idea, and they came up with one as well. But what they did was that they 3D printed a filter that attaches to this mask. Brilliant idea, really. But this is for people who don't have a 3D printer. And I don't have a 3D printer. So now I've made a little sticky bobble. Now, just going to do something a little bit different on here as well. Take a little bit more duct tape. Duct tape's wonderful stuff. And I'm going to make a little kind of wing at the top there, just like that. Okay? And I'll show you how that works in a moment. So you get your two filters and you're going to put that on there, and you're going to stick this basically in between the two filters, and that's just to keep them apart, like that. Okay, like that. Okay, and so that will make it fit onto the snorkel a bit better. Now we're going to get Now we're going to get a bit of duct tape. We're going to put it over that join just there. We're going to leave enough at the bottom for the snorkel to fit in. So if you can see that, I'm going to put this around here. I'm going to put it around the bottom here. And then we leave the two canisters. With enough room at the bottom for the snorkel to go in. Just here. Like so. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to use obviously some more duct tape to seal up that bottom bit of the seal up that bit at the bottom. Now this takes a bit of time, so I don't want to bore you with all this. So I'll just I'll finish off doing this and I'll get right back to you. So I spent a bit of time to seal the bottom of those canisters to the mask. Now the way to test this as well, because you're still going to have to test it to make sure that this is a good seal. So the way to do that, you can't really put your hands over this one so easily. Get a couple of pieces of duct tape and seal up the canisters like this on the front. Just leave it open so that you can take it off pretty easy. So that's what we're doing. You can have a good look at that. Okay, so we're just going to seal that off a little bit here, and do it on the other side as well, because you've got to do two sides. One piece of duct tape and two pieces of duct tape. So there we've sealed both sides of the canister. Now what you do is put the mask on again and just do the vacuum test. Now if I breathe in really hard, it'll actually make this fold in, but that's a pretty good vacuum there. So I'm going to take these off. And then try it again. So that works pretty well. Now, so some of the other questions. Now, there was a comment from the manufacturer of one of these masks on the doctor's YouTube. No one answered that question. The manufacturer of one of these masks turned around and said that these are not used for medical supplies, and we get that. We really do, that they're not used for medical supplies, that they might not have a good seal around the face without having water there, that you might get carbon dioxide inside the mask, and you can't sterilize them. And sterilization is definitely a question. How do you sterilize something with plastic? You can't boil it, you can't heat it up, because you know, because it's plastic, right? So one of the ways that you might be able to do that is you might be able to do it with a UV light. UV lights are still readily available on Amazon, so that you can still get a UV light to sterilize it. But this is, and as for the other things that they're mentioning, that this isn't medical grade equipment, it's not designed for that, we understand. But there are nurses out there, there are doctors out there wearing bandanas to try and keep the virus away. These are unusual circumstances, and unusual circumstances require unusual solutions. This would definitely, I think, being a non-medical guy, but you're breathing in air through a respirator, through respirator filters, which is pretty good, and breathing it out again. Now, another point that somebody made as a comment on my thing is that this would have a two-way valve in it, because you breathe air in, and when you breathe air out, you don't want it to breathe out through here as well, because if it breathes out through there, then you might start to get carbon dioxide build up inside the mask. Well, this doesn't have a two-way valve, so you can breathe in and out through this thing. The two-way valve is actually in the mask. So let me just pull this over the top here so I can get that out of the way. So I wanted to show you the mouth part of it. So in here, this face part gets fresh air all the time coming in through the top, coming in through the filters. then you'll notice that this actually has two sets of valves. It has one set of valves here and then an exhale set of valve at the bottom. So what happens is fresh air comes into this eyepiece here, and the good thing about that is that this doesn't steam up. Then this valve here lets air from here into this mouth part just here, okay? And so the air comes into here, goes into the mouth part. Then when you exhale, this is a one-way valve, right? So this one-way valve has let air into here, but it won't let air go out. So you breathe the air into this little section here, which minimizes CO2, by the way, because you've got a smaller area. So it brings the air in here, and when you breathe out, it pushes it out through the bottom, which works well. So that's why I think this will actually work well. And again, the biggest part of this, even above what the masks do, this actually protects the eyes, but this protects the eyes as well. So you see people with the plastic visor, this actually does that job. Now, over here, when you're breathing out air in one of these, okay, there is no filter, right? So over here, you've got this little piece at the bottom here. This is where you could cover it with some material. So, and again, not a medical practitioner, but I was going to use a Band-Aid one if you haven't got anything, but a part of a face mask would work as well, because again, that's the type of material that keeps viruses out and it's porous enough. Is to stick that over that, and that will stop your droplets and your breath coming out through here and maybe infecting somebody else. So that might be a good idea to just cover this bit to protect somebody else. But otherwise, I think, and again, not for the manufacturers, this is not the ideal thing. Hazmat masks for all our nurses, all our doctors would be the ideal situation. But at a pinch, think that this mask, similar like this, might work. And if you have a 3D printer, go and have a look at the doctor's one, because that's a very neat one as well. But if you don't have a 3D printer, this is a really good, in England we would call that a botch job, a really good sort of way of actually being to help our people. In Edmonton, where I live, our nurses are not being given the proper masks to go and test people, and they're actually sort of up in arms about it. Well, they should, you know, do this. These are readily available, still for sale on Amazon. You can get them in Costco. You can still buy these in Home Depot, and duct tape you can get everywhere. So if you have any questions, feel free to put some comments at the bottom. Oh, when you are using this, okay, one of the things that the manufacturer said about doing CO2, you got to realize that this one is not a powered unit, so it's not pumping air into it. You've got to breathe through this like somebody who is snorkeling. Okay, so when you're breathing with this, if you do shallow breaths like that, just little shallow breaths, you might get too much CO2 just in that mask there. You've got to take deep breaths when you've got one of these masks on. So breathe in like that, because that's going to pull all the fresh air in. It'll keep this clearer, and then breathe out, and that'll blow all the air out. So you have to use a little bit of a different breathing technique, the same as you would if you were actually snorkeling, when you're actually using one of these. And the manufacturers of that other mask said that they were worried that in stressful situations this might be a problem. But so it's one thing you have to remember: you're going to have to breathe properly. Breathe in with two canisters there as well. You won't feel any resistance. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out, and that should work. If any comments at the moment, put them on. I've only had, me and the doctors, they haven't had many views either, but we can't get this out. This would be really well. So if you've seen this video and you know anybody can get other people to have a look at it or to give this idea to people who matter. I can't. I'm in isolation for 14 days, just like everybody else. So if you can get this out to anybody, please forward the YouTube to somebody and who can, you know, show other people that this works. Thanks. Bye.